Tonight is the 4th of July, 2021. Hope everybody's doing well. It's wee hours of the morning. It's about 1:30 a.m. And I picked up something at the seminary here in El Paso, about a couple hundred yards, a block up from my house. And it's a big organ. Here's the amplifier out of it. It was full of tubes. All the original tubes. It looks like everything in there is date stamped like 1957. Here's an amplifier. It uses 4 6L6s, a couple of 5U4s. Kind of some serious amplifier stuff. Here's another one. You can find all this stuff on the internet. It's actually fairly common, more common than I thought. Anyway, I got the whole darn thing for 10 bucks. Except they didn't want all of the wood and everything. So I stripped all the goodies out of it. Here are the speakers. They actually look pretty decent. They're a little bit dirty. Well, 57, that's 64 years ago. There's the second one. It's got two 15-inch ones and a 12-inch one down here on the floor. I don't think we're particularly interested in the speakers. This one looks pretty clean. I have not tried any of them. I've taken one of these modules out. It has, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 6 of these same kind of modules. And every one of those empty tube sockets was a 6SN7. Just absolutely beautiful. These transformers right here, I'm not sure what to do with them. I'll have to show you something about them. I got a bunch of them. It has 6L6s. I got some magnificent 6L6 GCs and a couple of 6L6 GBs that are black plate. I have them in one of my amplifiers right now. I think all these things are tone generators. I think every one of those 6SN7s is an oscillator. I've already taken out some of the power supply components. They're pretty hefty. I'll show you that power transformer that goes right there, and here's a couple of chokes that I'm going to take out too. And I'll show you what I'm starting to do with some of these capacitors and stuff like there. It's got a couple of trimmers in there that are real nice. I think they go from about, the ones that I've taken out and already measured go from like 90 picofarads to 400 picofarads. So, and there's some cables, of course. I didn't take the wooden part of the organ except for this panel right there. It just looked too pretty to throw away. Real nice piece of wood. I don't know what I'll do with it. But let me bring some of the transformers in here. I'll show you them, and then we'll go over to the shop and I'll show you what I'm up to. The only thing I didn't have in here a while ago is this massive transformer I took out of the bottom of that thing. Here's the 6 volt that powers all those tubes, all those 6SN7s. Of course, I think there's 37 or 38 of them. So assume 40 at a half amp P, that's 20 amps. So it's got a huge 6 volt winding. There's the primary, the black wires. 5 volts for I guess it's 6 amps for a pair of 5U4s in the high voltage. The high voltage is 600 volts center tap. Just about exactly the wrong voltage for me. Because if you put that into a bridge, you're going to get 600 plus about 30% more. So you're going to get about 780 volts. That's a lot of voltage. If you put it into a regular full wave center tap with solid state diodes, you're going to get about 1.3 times half of that. 30% of 350, which is about 100 volts. I mean, 30% of 300, about 100 volts, so you can get about 400 volts. And if you do it with a rectifier, you only get about 1.1 times that. So, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do with this monstrosity. I don't think I have anything else in here very interesting to show you. Just some more of the the transformer stash. I had this thing hanging just the other day, but it pulled out the little thing. I don't think I've got any particularly new transformers since the last time I showed this stash, except maybe these guys down here. These are out of an AM transmitter that I bought. Some pretty neat stuff. 10 volts at 20 amps for a pair of 833As or what have you, and some higher voltage transformers too. I picked these guys up for $5 a piece. I don't know if they're really worth much. I see these things on eBay going for stupid prices. 150 ohms or 600 ohms, primary to 60K, secondary 10 milliwatts. So it's an input transformer. So you'd hook like a microphone to a grid. They're absolutely beautiful. They've never been opened until I opened one of them. And I don't understand why people ask so much money for these. I have no use for them. At the electronics store that I bought them at, they have them out in their junk pile for $5 a piece. You see them on eBay for like 250 bucks. I don't understand that. Please tell me why I want these, if you know. Besides selling them on eBay, which I'm not going to do. Anyway, that is what's over here at the moment. I don't think there's anything more exciting. Let's go back to the shop and I will show you what I've been doing with these parts that I just got today. I suppose before we go, we should take a look underneath the chassis. You can find pictures of this stuff on the internet. I don't know what all this is worth, but it's something to look at. I always like to look underneath the chassis. There's a note down here where apparently he says something like he couldn't find the choke. I guess the choke went bad, so he put a bunch of resistors in there. Anyway, there's some more chokes. I got all the chokes and stuff out of the other one. Another big power transformer. I don't know. It's probably about the same voltage. I'll have to measure it and see. Another big massive power transformer. Got lots of those. I got plenty of power transformers. So there it is. This one does have a, this is a choke right there. I have already checked it out, and this is the output transformer. Some people really like these organ output transformers, so it might be pretty good. Might have to play with that a little bit. These have not been messed with. I can plug the tubes right back in, and it may work, sort of. I don't know. Am I going to do that? Probably not. See, it has 4 6L6s right here and 2 5U4s. Yeah, that's a good point to make right here. One 5U4, about the maximum power a 5U4 can provide as output power is about 40 watts, which is, assuming 50% efficiency, is about 80 watts, about what a 5U4 is worth. So if you got a 5U4 will drive 2 6L6s, but if you got 4 6L6s, you need 2 of them. And that's why they do it. It's got 112AX7 driving it. So this is strictly the power amplifier, and I'm not sure how this thing right here hooks up. I haven't been able to find a very detailed schematic of it, but and I don't think I'm actually going to try to make this thing work. I just don't see the point in it. Okay, to start with, let's see if I can find the button to zoom here into the bucket. There are a bunch of the tubes that came out of it. 6 SN7s out the kazoo, and they are beautiful. I've polished a bunch of them up, but I've just got them in the bucket right now. I already had a bunch of them. I put some more of them, you know, these guys right over here. I'm even trying a pair of them here. with these 6L6s that came out of it. These are 6L6 GBs, but they look like black plate to me, and they perform just amazing, absolutely amazing. You know, I gotta say something here. Recently I've been trying different tubes, so I gotta be fair. These right here are electro harmonics. I'm not an absolute blinding buyer of any of these tubes, but these have been very good. These perform really well in that amplifier right there. These are electro harmonic 6L6 EHs. Anyway, gotta say some good things about things when they work. And then on the other hand, look at these beauties. Every one of these things are date stamped 1957. A couple of Raytheon 5U4s. They work. I plugged them into this amplifier. Same here. I think one of these says RCA or something. Raytheon and Salvaging, yeah. Anyway, that's what you get out of this stuff when people just want to get rid of it. Now here's something, if I only show you one thing tonight that's really worth knowing, it's this right here. Okay, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Look, I got 5 of these. Are you familiar with this, let me get this thing to focus, with these Mullard ECC82 12AU7s or 12AX7s. They're called 10M series. These things are magnificent. You want them in 12AX7 and 12AU7. I'm going to show you why. For 2 things. One is they always test very strong unless they're burnt out. I mean, I have some that are shot. That happens. But these that are good, oftentimes they're very good. They're very strong, and just as important, the 2 triodes are balanced. They're very, very good. I highly recommend them. You can find them and afford them. Anyway, I got 5 in that little stash for my $10. Now let me show you something that's really important here. Let me get this cart turned around, and the I'm going to flounder a little bit in the camera turning, but I got to show you something that's going to happen right here at this 12AU7. Now there are videos here on YouTube that talk about these little flashing tubes, and they have labeled them as being bad. Well, let me tell you something. Watch this little guy right here. I hope I can capture this. Yeah, I did, didn't I? That is one of the best tubes that man ever made. Telefunken, Mullard, and Amperex over in Europe made these guys. And the best explanation I've ever heard of why they did that was to speed up the warm-up time, because people were impatient back in 1960, and they didn't want to have to sit there and wait for like 30 seconds for their amplifier to warm up. Now we have to wait for them to boot up, and you know what? It takes them longer to boot up than it did to warm up. Okay, but anyway, I had to show you that. These flashing tubes are outstanding. They're some of the best that's ever been made, so please don't throw them away, as I've heard some of the YouTube people suggest. Let me stop this and get reoriented again. Okay, let's see if I can move quickly on this. What I want to show you here is that I took up a lot of these bumblebee capacitors out right here. These guys right here. Because I've always liked them. Because Macintosh amplifiers are full of them. So is Collins Radio. So is everybody that made the best of the best. Full of these things. And these things. These green ones and everything else. And you know, people demonize this one and they praise that one, and that's all a bunch of nonsense. But let's take a look at it so you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to set up the measurement tool. Be right back. Okay, what I've got set up is something so simple that it's just too easy to use. I have a variable power supply over here. Very lucky to have this guy down in here. He goes up in increments of 10 millivolts from 0 to 999.99. Anyway, 20 milliamps, which is plenty of current for us. What we're going to do here is, these are the negative and the positive lead of that power supply, and I've got it into the meter. I put it on DC because I'm running DC through it, and I put the capacitor in series with it. The power supply, the meter, and the capacitor are in series. It is really simple. Okay, now I'm going to put some voltage on it. Put 100 volts, 200 volts. You see what the meter's doing here? I guess we ought to pay attention to this thing. 300 volts, 400 volts. Okay, that's all we're supposed to put on it. I got to be careful. That thing will knock the poop out of me. You see it doesn't go to 0. It's leaking. Leaking DC. Let me show you a good capacitor here. Just a plain old garden variety. You see how the meter doesn't go to 0? There's a few nanoamps or femtoamps. I don't know. I don't care to measure it. Probably a few microamps. But let me show you something. If we swap out that capacitor, like for a new orange drop, they always jump up when they charge. The meter, I don't know. Yeah, you saw the meter, but it goes to. It goes to, I hope this thing will focus. Maybe not. Come on guys. I'm trying. It goes to 0. Watch that 0 mark when I put this little bumblebee in there. Whoa, that thing is not doing real well, is it? You actually have to put it down here on the 3-volt scale to see it. See, it doesn't go to 0. It's leaking. Okay, and you know what? Every one of them's leaking. Now, the last thing I want to do here is demonize bumblebee capacitors, because I've got a lot of equipment and it's full of these bumblebee capacitors, and it works very well. So be careful. The leakage there in that capacitor that we just looked at is very, very small. I mean, look at it. This is on the 3-volt scale with 400 volts across that thing. It's leak. Oh my God. Well, I'm not measuring the current. I don't want to measure the current. This is. You don't need an ESR meter and things that. You know, ESR and RS, which is series resistance, are the same thing. It's just that somebody came up with ESR a few years ago and made it a big deal and sold it. Now everybody has to have something that measures ESR. We've been measuring series resistance for the last 100 years, so it's actually nothing new. It is worth something. But anyway, to measure ESR, you can go through all this hocus pocus and magic eye tubes and all that kind of stuff that in some of these capacitor testers. This is going to tell you more, and it's really simple. Unfortunately, all my capacitors are not worth it, and neither are these. These leak too. I think one of them didn't, and 2 of them did. So it's all junk. The tubes are not junk. The transformers are not junk. The things that are lasting are those things. You know, when I was a kid and I had electronic stuff that was 20 years old, I thought, my God, this is ancient stuff. Well, what was 20 years old then is 75 years old now, and a lot of it still works. So there you go. Anyway, depending on where you live, I suppose, depends on your opportunity to go to estate sales or what have you. But as one of my friends said, I don't have access to Hamfest, but I have estate sales where they give things away. It's incredible. I think that this kind of a thing, I don't know if I'm right or not, but I just see this happening in other parts of the country where people want like thousands of dollars for it. Is this stuff you see on eBay real? where people want this kind of money for everything? You think we're going into inflation? You think? Okay, well, enough of that. Let me show you some other tubes here that are just beautiful. These are the GBs, and they're black plates as far as I know. That's what I call them. And you know, when I really got into just listening, and I wasn't out here trying to chase down the last molecule in one of these things, I liked the sound of those black plates. Somehow it worked. I said, I like those. Yep, those are the ones. So, for whatever it's worth. And you know what? They perform extremely well here too. They outperform the electro-harmonics, and the electro-harmonics actually did quite well. They actually did better than the Tongsol 5881s. So there you go. I don't have an infinite supply of all this stuff, but anyway, I just picked up a few more. Besides these GBs, that thing was full of these. Had these 4 beauties in it. You see that? 4 6L6s. They measure what? 33, 34, 36, and 36. They're all very strong. Just some really beautiful stuff out of there. Wow, I mean, like I think I'm the first guy that's ever gone into this this old organ since the thing was built. Anyway, that's where I measure capacitors. Okay, here's another thing. We need to go there. Because, you know, when I was a kid, I was thinking to myself today, sitting outside, it's almost raining, and I'm crashing something. I'm there with soldering iron, cutting iron, whatever it takes to rip parts out. Well, let me show you something here. We've got some really, really nice stuff to work with. Put that back on ohms. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these resistors down here, but you're actually going to have to be looking up at the ohm meter all the time. And I'll be telling you what I'm measuring, and you'll see where I'm going on this. Let's go up to the meter. Yeah, that's pretty good. What's better and what's worse? It's about the same, I guess. We'll leave it like that. No, then I can't see. I'm going to measure a 24K resistor, 10%, silver band. Out of 47K, 46. That is good, isn't it? That's one of these little half-watt carbon resistors. That one right there goes to the museum. Okay, let's measure another one. Every one of these I chopped right out of that little amplifier. 42 out of 47. Well, that hit real close, but I guess in a pinch. You're going to see that some of these are way off. 42, that's not too bad. Anyway, some of them get really, really wacky. I've been doing this and also those 2.2K. So if you are a lover of vintage carbon copper resistors, you better measure every one of them before you put them in your circuit, because if you don't and it doesn't work, it's your own fault. This is 43. We could go here and measure resistors all night, but anyway, the point is, most of these resistors, at least half of them are really pretty far out of tolerance. So if you're going to use them, you better measure them. And if you measure them and they're perfect, well, you know, there's an extra reward there, just because you got lucky and found them. Okay, let's go back down here. That's what I was measuring down there. Well, I think that's all I can think of right now, because it's 3 a.m. and tomorrow we got a 4th of July people coming over, so there you go. I think it's a great 4th of July. You know, it may not meet all those political goals, but you know, we're all still alive, aren't we? If you're listening to my video, you are. Stay safe, my friends. God bless. Thanks for watching. I guess the last thought of the night is, what do you do with these things? I already put the resistors away, but what do you do with these things? Do you just throw them away? Well, I don't know. Maybe not. If you're doing it for a living, I'd probably throw them away. But if you're just doing it because you're crazy, you save them. And then, you know what? What it takes to rebuild the world exists right there. That's the part of the world that everybody wants to throw away. And of course, that's only one nanospeck of it that we all save. But you save them for some reason, and besides that, someday you may want to build a circuit where you hand pick all your components, and you may want to pick them from the vintage source. And you know what? They're not making them like that anymore. So if you value your hobby in components, then save what you can. I can't save it all either. Oh, by the way, let me show you this. This is really cool. You know what this is? This is the on-off switch. It's a mercury switch. See those two leads right there? They go to two little electrodes inside. And right now the mercury is down on the left-hand tip of it, down here. But when I turn it like this, bloop, the mercury goes and shorts those two contacts and turns it on. That's the on-off switch for that organ. Not a click. Man, that is like too cool. I got to build something around that.